All discussions and interactions are meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. They're not intended to breach the ATA Code of Conduct, single out any student or educator, or diminish professional integrity in any way.
Professional development with Mr. Drover. Gun half dropping in your pocket when we come over. Keep it live. Good development with Mr. Drover.
All right. Dr. Poppy Gibson. How's it going?
Hi. Yes, I'm so excited. I've been following you for a while. So yeah, just excited to be here.
Just to start off your Instagram is one of the most aesthetically pleasing things on my feed.
Oh, thank you.
You do a really good job on it.
I know you're a pet daddy as well. Is it the pets?
It's a little bit of the pets. I love your stories though. Like I think it was your daughter that was like doing your hair. Like I thought that was absolutely fantastic, and like that just screams personality. And when I was watching those stories, I was like, okay, I know exactly how this conversation will go, and it will go fluid and super awesome.
I mean, there'll be a bit of chaos along the way, and some. That's how I like to live, by the seat of my pants. So I'm sure anything could happen in this episode.
Okay, perfect.
No, don't be scared. Like we're here now, so we're locked in.
We're pretty much the same person like that. I like just to go for it. My fiance doesn't like that much sometimes because she thinks I'm sporadic, which I definitely am. But it gets things done, right? She's the anchor that sort of like organizes me, right? She's like, hey.
Love that. Opposites attract.
I got some fun icebreakers, and I sort of designed them because of a story that you told in another podcast. But if you were to describe, I guess, working with students or, building that foundational relationship and how important it is with like a metaphor, what would it be? You talked about an island before, and I really love that.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think another good one could be seeing your students like a brick wall. So not in a bad way. That might have a negative connotation, but if you imagine that every student you meet is so different, their experiences at home, any previous education it's so varied. So these walls are going to be totally different, right? Some are going to be small, some are going to be tall, some are going to have really strong foundations, some are going to be really wobbly. And I guess then I would say our job as educators, whatever age our student is to help them strengthen that wall, to fill in the gaps, and to learn to stay strong, I guess, in stormy weather. I guess that's where I see us. It's not just about the academic side, but it's about really strengthening your students for whatever comes after you. Because that is the island. I mean, you
no. No, it is really good. And like when you're building those walls, you need different tools for different circumstances.
Yeah.
Right? Like not every wall needs the same thing. So you really have to look at that wall, figure out, okay, what's wrong here? Are the support beams bent? Do they need replacing? Does the mortar on this brick wall like need some like reinforcement? Do I need to put some rebar in there? Like something like that, right? And I think, yes, you nailed it on the head.
You knew better brick terminology than me, but yes, everything you said. yeah. And that's
the
what's
bricks,
hard.
The mortar, the paste, yeah.
Okay, the paste and the rocks. But that's what's hard, isn't it? Because we only know. Whereas if they were walls, we could see them and we could know where the weaknesses are and where the gaps are. But when we're dealing with humans, much more complicated, isn't it? Because we only know what their wall looks like from mostly what they tell us and what they disclose or what we learn from if we meet their families, which is harder when they're adult learners because you don't normally meet the families. So that's the harder part. If they were walls, if it was that transparent, it might be easier. But essentially, we're trying to build invisible walls, right?
Yeah, like I think on top of that, like my first principal, my first boss when I was starting to teach, and I've said this in interviews since, is that behavior is communication, right? So like when you're looking at the students, right, and they're behaving a certain way, like that's sort of your data point to like sort of like figure out, okay, what does this student need? But yeah, they're not as easy as walls because, well, I say that as not a carpenter, because a carpenter maybe can look at a wall and be like, okay, this is exactly what it needs because they're an expert at it. But we as educators, I guess that's where that comes from, right? Like that's what separates us from not pulling some random person off the street and say, okay, well, they do that sometimes when we have a substitute shortage, but and ideally, right, we're experts in our trade, but I think that imposter syndrome comes into play, and we just none of us really feel like we know what we're doing when we're given a new set of circumstances.
Is so true. But you know what, Conrad? I don't think I've ever met a teacher without imposter syndrome. So hopefully if that reassures you, or if that reassures anyone, I have it too. But I think what's funny as teachers is we choose to put ourselves in front of other people, yet we're all secretly, well, bricking it, to use a brick word and some English slang. But yeah, we all feel that, but how funny we still just, we want to try, even though we're all really super nervous that we're not doing the right thing.
Yeah. I think that goes in like I'm going on a tangent here, but I think that goes into like just adulthood in general. Like when I was a child, I thought my parents knew everything. Like, and then I realized when I became an adult, I was like, yeah, never mind. Like everyone was just winging it. Like,
yeah, that's true. It's true. And I mean, I love my children, but if they ever are wearing a matching pair of socks, like I've done a good day. I think
success.
sometimes we worry too much about material things, and actually I would rather sit and talk to my kids all night and they have to wear odd socks because I didn't sort the laundry out properly. So I still have mum imposter syndrome as well, don't worry.
Oh, well, I have yet to experience that. Maybe one day. But I think, I know it'd be because you're literally in the thick of it in childhood development, just at home, right? Me as a non-parent, a cat dad, totally different.
Still cat.
I get the kids in grade 7 or year 7, and I just sort of have to go with that. Whereas you're a mother now, you kind of can build up. Okay, I feel like you might have a more complete sense of where that kid is coming from, and I think that's probably one of the perks of being a parent and a teacher.
That's an interesting point. Because I'd like to think that I was a good teacher even before I was a parent. And honestly,
I assume so.
Some of the best teachers I know, don't have children themselves. So I wouldn't say it's a prerequisite to be a good teacher, but I agree with you. I do think it's helped me see the whole picture of children and childhood rather than just that. Well, our hours here in England are normally like 8:30 till 3 p.m. Was your school day similar?
Yeah, 8:30 till like 3:40 or whatever.
Yeah. So I guess, I was only seeing what that's like. And now, you just get the whole 24/7, 365 days a year. So you see different sides. Like one of my favorite things as a teacher, and I still do it now with my adult students, which is really cool, taking them on a residential. So that moment where you take your children on the school trip, that was always my favorite. And I've managed to do that. I took 25 students to Spain 2 years ago. And then last year I took 3 students to India. And it's still my favorite thing because you just see people in a totally different context. I mean, do you do residentials in Canada? Is that a thing?
Yeah, like I guess we'd call them like field trips or just like trips. I haven't aside from like sporting events, so I've taken like my kids to like 5-hour drive away to like another town to do track and field and stuff like that. I went on a trip to Rome, like Italy and France and stuff in my grade 12 year. And I remember even as a student, I remember just having a different relationship with my teachers on that trip. Like they're pretty much like, hey, don't die. And like, like that was the idea. Like outside of like that institutional structure, really, I think it humanized the teachers for me. And I could assume that like it humanized us for them, because it's different once you get back from a trip like that. Like then you're in the school again, and then like you just have this connection with the 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 students, and the teachers have a connection to each other. And it's what I, again, tangents, I'm sorry.
We love a tangent. I love a tangent.
When
Never apologize.
when I know that like I've done like a good job building a connection, is they take away the Mr. from my name. So like I'm Mr.Drover, right? And then they're like, as soon as I go, hey, here, what's up, Drover? I'm like, got him. Like, you know, like that's sort of the thing. We talked about this a little bit on our pre-ramble, but the whole point of this podcast is just to speak with individuals that have a different view than I have, or maybe the same view, but just a larger view. Experience is something, man. Like you can read from a textbook all day, but I think the best professional development anyone can have is just spending a day in the life of someone else's in someone else's shoes. So the closest thing I can do with that right now is have really cool discussions with people. And I want to ask, like, let's start at the beginning here. Like, what was little Dr. Poppy like in primary school, right? Was there early signs that you wanted to be a teacher or a researcher?
Ooh, firstly, I was actually very little. I mean, I was that smallest kid. So, like, physically, I was small. And I think the one thing that hasn't changed is I always dreamed big. So I've always loved reading. I've always loved escapism, and I've always had a great imagination. I mean, in my opinion, my kids will probably say I'm really boring. But I always dreamt big. And this is something I try and say to my students now. Honestly, always dream big. I mean, however big is the right big for you. We're all different. So I think I remember the only thing I can really remember saying when someone asked me, what do you want to do when you're bigger? Is I said I wanted to be a famous writer. And I loved writing fiction stories, children's stories, horror stories. I haven't quite done that, but I have written some stuff. So I feel like little me like that. But I'm still totally disorganized. A lot of people are shocked when I tell them how disorganized I am. Very disorganized, spontaneous, impulsive. But now I'm an adult, I can just act on it better, you know? Right. If I want to do something, I'll do it. But the one real thing was I didn't like education. So although I love reading and I loved people and I love people pleasing, I didn't really engage too well with the content. And I've always had a bit of a defiance for authority. So I think part of that as well, I didn't really engage. I didn't like the way that some teachers wanted you to be passive in learning. So all these things along the way helped me think that when I'm big, I want to do something differently to that. So I like my learning to be active instead of passive. I like to have conversations instead of in school. Maybe we were meant to sit and listen. So yeah, I think it helped me grow as a teacher.
Yeah, like I find that most people, when I ask that question, is like they either have like a negative influence or like a positive influence. And what I mean by that, it's like they've experienced something and they say, I want to be just like him. Right. For me, it was my teacher in grade 6, 7, and 8, Mr. Gillowitz, who was like a kickboxer and Muay Thai, Star Wars nerd. And he wore like steel toe boots and like a button up shirt to class every day. Oh. And it was just hilarious. And
he was like your form tutor? He was like your class teacher?
He was my class teacher for all of grade 6. And then he taught me math and science for year 7 and year 8. Wow. And then I'm still in touch with him now and stuff like that. And I like, again, he probably rolls his eyes and makes fun of me for like telling about how cute this is or whatever.
No
but
way. I bet he loves it.
He does secretly, but he's like the stoic, you know, right? He'll never show it. He'll put me in a headlock. That's what he'll do.
He's humble.
Yeah. But so that was like a positive influence. And I was like, man, I want to be that guy. But I have talked to other educators and other teachers that had experiences in school that were like, I don't want to be that guy, right? I actually want to be the opposite, like to that person, because you experience something that you're missing and you want to make that change in the future. You want to be the change that you wish you had, right? And I think everyone wants to be, I guess, how do I phrase this? For me, I want to be a teacher that I would love having as a teacher. Like that's sort of my idea.
I feel like you are, just from talking to you.
Well,
I feel
like when
you're smashing it.
when you're talking about how disorganized you are or whatever, it's hilarious because I am type B as it gets. Like, so I've diagnosed ADHD, and like it's wild that I'm even surviving at this point. But the idea with that, and I've talked to a lot of people with this, is that like I'm 31. I never use ADHD as an excuse for anything right now, right? It's sort of just a quirk in my personality. I've found ways to cope and organize my life to utilize that wide range of attention, right? And I can like focus in when I really want to, because if I didn't have this disorganization, I would get literally nothing done. I would spend so much time organizing things that I would actually wouldn't get anything done. So I think there is like a method to the madness of being like crazy disorganized, is because you're just rolling at 90 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, and you don't have time to match your socks in the morning sometimes, but that's okay because it's bigger picture, right?
That's it, bigger picture. I mean, I could have guessed you had ADHD already. Do you know how?
Okay, tell me, please. What's my tell?
Well, because you just upstarted a podcast. So that's pretty much that for me. In most cases, that's a green flag. Because we love new stuff, right? We love generating stuff. So, I mean, I love that for you. But yeah, as soon as we had a podcast, it was an idea that you might have ADHD. But
Yeah,
yes,
well,
I would rather come and talk to you than match socks. So we're winning.
we definitely are. And yeah, I think like, so I've been a competitive runner for now more than half my life. This year, I think last April, actually, I got injured. It was just a sad story about that. I got like a 1.4 centimeter tear in my abdomen that sort of inhibited me from, doing any competitive running, and some healing, some running again, some physio, then some re-injury. And then by the time February hit this year, it was like, no, you got to take like an extended amount of time off. And so I was just bored. Like I didn't have that running, because I would run like 110 kilometers a week, right? Like that's like the training, right? And now that I had the energy of running 110 kilometers in me and I didn't have an outlet, I was like, what am I doing? Like I used to make little horror movie fan films when I was in primary school and like middle school.
Cute.
And I was like, well, I got all this tech, and I used to do like Bill Nye video lessons during COVID, where I'd shrink myself down to the size of a microscope and like, or the size of a breadcrumb to teach about microscopes and stuff, like very Miss Frizzle magic school bus type thing.
Very
and I was like,
cool.
so I had the tech, and I'm teaching this film studies and this audio video class. Why don't I start a podcast? And that's sort of like where the catalyst is. Sorry, that was a huge tangent about me. This is
I love an
all about
origin
you.
story.
Yeah,
I always
it
love
is.
an origin story. So I love that. I love that.
And I also got my face on this mug.
Wow. I'm jealous because mine's naked.
I don't know. My fiance rolls her eyes whenever I pull this one out. But
That's beautiful.
all right. Okay, so that's sort of the origins of this podcast, I guess. That could be a little clip, I guess. But what I really want to get into, and like, oh, this is Oi again.
Hello. Beautiful.
It's like he's like 10 kilograms. Like he's wild. So right now, from what I've gathered is right now you're working with adults in education. So you're working with like your faculty of education, helping student teachers or pre-service teachers or whatever you want to call them, because everyone calls them different things here. I just had 2 teachers in training under me for the last 4 weeks. So that was
how did it go?
good. Really good. Like they're amazing classroom teachers. They're 2 really different types of people. So that was a little hanging around, but yeah, I've had student teachers before, but the main thing was the difference I had to is I actually had to give some criticism because they weren't the finished product yet. And I was just really graced with like really I guess mature student teachers in the past, like in terms of age, like they've had like a master's in biochemistry before they started teaching, or they had an engineering degree. These were like fresh, like undergrads. And it was cool, like, because now I'm like, oh man, like they're looking at me for advice. Like, this is weird. But the one thing I had to sort of adjust and figure out was giving criticism to an adult that I would otherwise think of as my peer. And I was like, when you're working with adults now, and maybe just give a synopsis of like what your actual role is, just so everyone knows. How did you find that sort of transition with working from with children to working with adults, and how do you manage that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, working with adults isn't something I ever thought I would do. Teaching adults isn't something I saw in my career, but it was just, I'd been primary school teaching for 11 years and finished my PhD, and just, I started working with adults as a learning support advisor, just 1 day a week while I was finishing my thesis. And I just loved it. It was a very different challenge. I'll expand more in a bit, but I loved it. And then a lectureship came up at a university in London, and I went for it and I got it, and I've never looked back. And I've been lecturing now for, I think this is my 9th year. So I've been teaching adults for 9 years. It's very different because I think when you teach in a school, well, here in England, obviously, it's normally like a legal requirement that your children are in education or somewhere, even if it's at home. So they have to come and they have to be there. It's probably not their choice. The difference with adults, and I think what makes me love it more, is it's their choice. So they're coming to university. Some of them are straight out of college, so 18, but many of them might be in their 20s, 30s, 40s. I had one of the students actually that convinced me to go into it was when I was doing that 1 day a week job. She was 84. She was 84 and she was just finishing her first degree in fine arts. She was called Rada. And I was just blown away by her because she was 84 and she said, I've had my children, my grandchildren have grown up, and now I'm just doing something for me. And it was so cool and so admirable. And so she'd been doing this degree over the last few years before I met her. She'd had to learn, how to open a laptop, how to download Microsoft Word, what Word even was, all these things. And I was just so in awe of her. And I loved hearing her journey. Like I told you, I loved hearing about how your podcast was formed. I really do love hearing origin stories and hearing about her life and the adversity, and that she was here doing this for her. It felt so amazing to be part of that, even though I only saw her 1 day a week. And I just thought teaching adults is really something special, because although teaching children is really special too, don't get me wrong, there is something about working with someone, supporting someone who is doing something for them, particularly where I work. So I'm a lecturer in education at the Open University, which I don't know if you have that over there, if you've heard it. It's an online university. But what's really cool about the Open University is because you don't have to go to a campus, it's all online. And it was actually the first pioneering university to not have a campus. In 1960, in the early 60s, they used to send you the books and you'd write your assignments and you'd post back the assignments via Royal Mail, via post. So this was the first university to ever do it. And obviously now that we have technology, it's online. But so for this reason, a lot of the people are parents or carers, or they work full time. But they're making they're carving. Funny, we spoke about bricks, I'm talking about carving, but they're like carving a little space just for them. And some people are wanting to study a degree to change career, but some people are just studying a module for enjoyment or on something they're passionate about, and they're just doing it for them. And it's so cool. So for anyone thinking about moving to working with adults, I would say it's totally different, but equally amazing. And teaching children is so rewarding, but there's something really incredible working with an adult who is, later in life, coming back to education and making a success of themselves. And on graduation, their teenagers are there cheering them on, or their children, and it's very, very cool. But I would say the harder part is then they do have all that baggage. So they're not a 5-year-old where, again, they may still have trauma and a lot that they're dealing with, but you might have someone, instead of being 5, they're 50, and they're going through a divorce. They've got children they don't see. And so a lot of this is impacting on them even being able to study. So you're dealing with, sometimes I'd say, a lot more challenges for them as a student. But that's why it's equally even more amazing when you see them on graduation day and you just feel so proud. Like you feel like you're like an extended family member. It's very, very cool.
Yeah. I can only imagine, because it takes like an active like choice to do that. And it's so cool when I see some people like self-improving just because that's what they need to do, or that's what they want to do. I love it. Working with that, like the 84-year-old, what did that give you, like any specific insights into like how you think about education, or did it fill maybe a gap in your thinking that you had before? Did it open you up to any sort of different perspectives?
Do you know?
You did touch upon it a lot, but
yeah, such a good question. I think I've always known education is lifelong, but I think maybe lifelong felt like it was, I don't know, in your 40s. And I think to see a woman in her 80s just was so incredible. It made me think, wow, it's really lifelong. And why not? And it just made me think, do you know what? We're never too old to do something new, to change pathway. And that's what I always say to my students, like, and even my friends that are teachers, never be unhappy. Never be unhappy in a school. There are hundreds and thousands of schools. Like, never be unhappy in a relationship. There are hundreds and millions and billions of people. And the same, like, for career, if you're starting to fall out of love with teaching, what I did was sidestep into adult education. And I think, just never be afraid to take a risk. So I think she just really reminded me that even in your 80s, you can still be risky and be selfish. Like, I love that she was just doing this for her every Sunday. She was coming to university. And why not just be true to yourself? It was just really so amazing.
That's great. And like the idea that like you're 88, like an 84-year-old. So some people don't live till 84, and like some people get a degree at 84. And I think that really, because a lot of people, I forget which analogy it comes from, but like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if people don't see older people represented in education, they sometimes don't feel that it's appropriate for them. And I'll give you a story that's happening right now. I mentioned to you before we started that I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. And my biological brother, Clayton, he's actually going back to school right now. He's 34 years old. Maybe, I don't know, but when you get older, like, you forget how old everyone is. But I am really the only academic person in my family. Everyone else is way smarter than me in every practical sense of the matter. So my brother Clayton, who we're talking about right now, and he gave me permission to talk about him. So he's in road construction. So he one of those students in high school that, sort of just tried to get along with the bare minimum and like, listen to his music with his friends. And he had a totally different experience than I did because I got like embedded in his sports really early. But other than sports, like we're the same person. Like I always tell him that we have the same brain. It was just like circumstances that are different. Like anything I can do, he can do. And then hopefully with a little practice, anything I can do, anything he can do, I will eventually be able to do. Um,
Wow.
I plan to buy a house soon, so I really hope that he can help come down and like do it for me, like all the renovations. But so I really look up to all my brothers, and like one of them is like an is trying to become an indigenous knowledge keeper. He does like drum making workshops, and he's really trying to grow that business. The other one's a roofer. So they're all like really good, but they're just not academic the way I am, right? I'm the pencil pusher. But unfortunately, Clayton got diagnosed with MS. I guess a few years, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and he is he's road construction. He's the guy with the hard hat on, breaking his body to make our foundations for our entire society. And I guess now he knows that the clock is ticking in terms of like his ability to do that work. So he wants to go back to school, not to become an educator, but he wants to, learn like the civil engineer side of what he's doing so that he can lead, right? And he's nervous. He has two kids. He has a baby and a 7-year-old boy. And he has never been that academic. He's a very smart guy, like I said, but he's nervous, and I'm nervous for him because me and him being the same person, I sort of understand what things that could come up that would, sort of pull him away, and what things that, I could help him with. But someone like that really benefits from a story that an 84-year-old can still go to, university and get stuff
Yes,
done.
Clayton. If Rada can do it, you can do it. We all believe in you.
Awesome. Do you have any, like, again, so he's been out of the game of education, like traditional studying and stuff like that, for a decade, more than that,
Yeah.
2 decades. What would your academic advisor advice be to him sort of organizing his life?
Yeah, good question. And this is honestly 99% of the students that I see are coming back after decades, after having 2 kids. Many of them have children during the studies as well. And my top tip, if like I only could say one thing to Clayton, would be communicate with your staff team at the university. So if you're finding things tricky, just speak to student support team. If you're finding the content tricky, talk to your lecturer. Like, never be afraid. There's no such thing as a silly question ever. Like, all the staff want is for you to succeed. So, it looks good for you, it looks good for us. We don't want you to drop out. We want you to have a transformative process. So never feel you can't come to someone. If you don't want to talk face to face, send an email, copy everyone into the email who might be able to help you. Like, honestly, I would just say communicate, because I find our students who do reach out when things are a bit difficult, particularly at the start, is tough for everyone. Like, with a little bit of coaching, sometimes even just having the chance to share how you're feeling can help you feel like you're putting your ducks in a row. And even communicating with your peers can be useful. So I don't know whether he's going to be face-to-face, or if you're studying online, there's normally like a discussion group. Some students start their own WhatsApp groups. These are all little ways that you can help stay on track with your studies, and also realize you're not alone if you're feeling nervous, because everyone's going to be feeling nervous. But the silver lining of that will be the cortisol, the stress hormone, is going to push us through to get it done. Because if we're nervous, it means we want something. It means we want it. So just channel that, communicate, and you can definitely do it. That's the other thing I would say. If you've thought about it and you're actioning to actually enroll, you can do it. Just use everyone there to support you and get it done.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what he needs to hear. And he also needs to hear it from someone else besides me. Because I think we've all been in that situation. Like, I'm a teacher. I'm literally trained to teach people. But also I'm his younger brother. So there's lots of things, and I think I get this with my students as well, is that people are just nervous to feel dumb. And I think and I get that all the time. I've sort of broken out of that. But learning is frustrating. It's like frustrating by design. If you don't get frustrated, like you said, you probably don't care enough, but navigating that frustration and getting to that eureka moment when that light bulb turns on, that's what teaches you. It's not turning on the light bulb itself. It's that pathway, that journey that you're battling through frustration. You're literally, it's a fight. That's what I found. Literally a fight to learn something sometimes. And I plan to take French courses in the fall because the province I'm moving to is really francophone, and it's a huge asset if I can communicate in French. And
Amazing.
so I'm telling you right now that, like, completely embarrassed because it's scary because it might not happen because I can barely speak English properly. But it is
It will happen.
it's the quintessential challenge for me, right? Because it's something that I know I'm going to be frustrated with. I'm not in no way, shape, or form have any natural talent with language. I don't. I have natural talent with running. I have natural talent with tech. Like, I can problem solve very analytically, but this is almost why I like it. And this is the athlete in me, because I'm like, this is the absolute most frustrating thing I could possibly learn, and I'm going to put head first and do it. And it's scary and it's daunting to say out loud, but that's my goal. But with Clayton, I think it's great that you said that, because we can at least, and it might be something he already knows, right? But just hearing someone else say it, I think is very, very, like, positive, right? Because we can always, like, trick ourselves into thinking what we need to do, but having someone else say it, I think, so I really appreciate it, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm sure he will do well. I'm sure you'll do well. And I would say, in the moments when you feel like you want to quit, then do you know what you should remember? That really cheesy saying that pressure creates diamonds, right?
Yes.
So if we look at the times when we've had the most personal growth or transformative change, it's when we've gone through difficult times. And I know you and I were chatting off air, because that's what makes you reflect, and that's what makes you understand yourself more. If we do something easy, you don't learn anything about yourself. But if you go through something challenging, so you going through learning French, you're going to learn how you've got to stretch your brain in a different way. And actually, that's where the reward comes. Not through doing something easy, but through doing something challenging. So you'll love it. Secretly, I can't wait to hear how that journey goes. I'm going to be following. I want to see updates on your socials. I want to see the future podcast episode in French with a French guest. That's like,
oh no. Well, one of my good buddies, he is natively French. So I'll get him to on our long.
You have a practice, someone to practice with.
Yeah, or I'll turn on. I'll have the dialogue in French on the TV and the subtitles in English or something like that. Like, those are all good ways to do it.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think absolutely, with like, if you were, and I'll tell this to Clayton again, it was like, if you were a perfect product and you had no questions, then why are you even there, right? Like,
that's a waste of your money.
Exactly, right? So, like, it's that, like, again, I see this a lot with, like, students. Like, they're afraid to go to the dentist because they are going to get judged because they didn't floss their teeth or something like that, right? I'm like, and I tell them, it's like, would your teeth be, so let's say you continue to not floss, right? Would your teeth be better off not flossing and not going to the dentist? Or would they be better off going to the dentist, getting a cleanup, whatever, and still not flossing? Ideally, in a perfect world, do both. But what is, like, better. Like the same with lots of my family smoke, right? Cigarettes. And I'm like, okay, well, if the smoking is not a thing that you're ready to quit, you can still exercise. Like, is it better to smoke and exercise, or exercise or not smoke at all, or not exercise at all, right? So start at what you can do. And I always I want to pick your brain about this because it's an athlete in me. It's the athlete in me. I always tell the kids to microdose adversity in their life. So when they get a chance, like, do something very difficult to prep you for something that is uncontrollably difficult.
I love it. I love it. And you reminded me of that. Do you remember this song from, like, I think it was the 2000s by Baz Luhrmann, and it was called Sunscreen. I don't know if it was big over there. It was massive in England. And in this song, he says, do something every day that scares you. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. You know, if we're not taught to live with a bit of anxiety and a bit of stress, then when we're really stressed and really anxious, we won't have those coping tools. So that's great advice.
Right. Awesome. I want to move on a little bit because we are running out of time, but you have, like, you're part of an amazing project, Future Diversity.
Oh.
Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I love that you know about one of my research projects. So you get a gold star. Ding. And actually, you've asked about my favorite. Don't tell the other projects, but this is my favorite because this one was everything we've been talking about actually already, Conrad. Like, this one was about taking a risk, because although I've worked on lots of research projects, the Future Diversity project that you just asked me about is the first one where I was what we call the PI, which is the principal investigator, which is like the boss. So it's the first project where I was the lead. So you write an application when you see the grant coming out, and you have to fill in kind of like a job application with your idea and submit it. But when you're the PI, it's extra nerve-wracking because you're the one who's had to do all the paperwork. It takes you months to write the application. So I'd spent about 3 months writing it. I'd found people to be on my team. I've got 4 other members of my team. And so you invest a lot of time, a bit like when you're going for a job, right? You invest a lot of time picking out the clothes and practicing questions. There's similar feeling. You really want it. You don't want to think that you want it too much in case you don't get it. So it's very much like that. And then when I got the email saying that we won, only 4 projects could win, and we're one of the 4. I read this email. I've never read an email like 20 times before. And I kept thinking, am I misreading? Because I've gone for grants before and not won them, just like when you go for jobs and you don't get it. And so I just almost wasn't expecting it. And so I read it 50 times and I realized I won it. And why it is so important to me is because this project is about working with young people. So 15 to 16-year-olds, which I think is a really good place to catch people, right? Just before they go off into kind of early adulthood, just when they're starting to know themselves a bit more and they're going through that adolescent period. And we're working with some amazing young people at a college in London. So again, I had to find a college that would be willing to put their name on this application. And luckily I found Toby, who works at the college. So Toby's my external partner for the project. And we're looking to see how these young people feel about their futures. So we're going to be we're actually just starting it like at the moment. We spent the last few months going through ethics, getting ethical approval, doing a lot of the paperwork in the background. And now we're going to be working with young people in creative ways. So we've got a creative methodology. They're going to get a chance to journal, to create videos like TikTok style, to create music and arts as ways of expressing themselves to help us understand as researchers how well prepared they feel for the future. And the one thing that unites them all, really interestingly, is they're all neurodivergent, like me and you. And so these are young people who maybe haven't always found education easy and maybe don't know what the future will hold. And we really just want to capture how they're feeling. And then the future diversity bit is over the next few months after our data collection with the young people, we want to co-create like a kind of a little program, a little induction program. We're going to co-create with the young people a little set of workshops that other colleges could do in September when young people start, to really help them have these same conversations. Like, what are your strengths? What do you need to work on? What are your interests? What do you want to do in the future? Because we don't always have time for those conversations in schools and colleges, do we? I feel like you do.
Right.
But we don't always have time for that human side. And you spoke earlier about humanizing, right? And that's what we want to do, really help to understand how we humanize education again. So it's in its early stages. So I'll have to invite you on my podcast like in a few months. So you come back and I'll just tell you about my project.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's the hope, that we can kind of help prepare these young people for the future and then replicate it for other young people.
Yeah, no, and like I think that is a crucial part of what we need to do. It's almost like an exit survey in education, basically, because we're catching these students at an age where they've had enough education experience to like give a thorough review of it, right? And I think when educators come in like to their best ability, they try their best to prep the students for the life that they have, right? The life that they're going to have in the future. And I do find that sometimes when I'm working with kids and they have accommodations, like they have a program plan that's different than the typical student, or it's specialized, is that we always have to find a balance between like, what accommodations are we giving them? And then is that accommodation maybe hindering them a skill that they would need for future success? And so I've had the experience now where I've had students that have done really well in school with accommodations and then have struggled a bit, either in the workforce or in post-secondary when those accommodations are kind of lifted. And I feel like sometimes it's easy for teachers to give themselves a pat on the back saying they did it, right? But having that exit survey, that research, that hard data that you are collecting right now could actually give us a way to reshape education from, I guess, the institutional, industrial, factory style that we have now to something that's going to be more applicable to jobs right now. Like we have, again, like technology is growing rapidly. Like Moore's law is ever increasing in terms of the amount of horsepower we have with AI and everything like that. And another thing with that is like the social skills. I don't know how it was in England, but the pandemic has really affected the ability for students to work collaboratively, like group work and everything like that. From my perspective, that you need to be able to go into an office, shake a guy's hand, and have a cordial relationship. And I'm super curious to see what the output or the input of that research you're doing. Do you have any preliminary stuff of like, what are the categories that people are most apprehensive about when they're leaving education?
Yeah, so so interesting hearing everything you're saying there. We don't at this point, but I'll tell you something really cool. We just before the Easter break here, we did like a launch workshop to try and get the young people interested in participating in opting in. Because we can't pay them to take part or anything because it would become a bias. So we had the idea Toby takes the credit, my partner in the college. Toby had the idea to do a clay workshop. So we used some of the money that we won to buy clay. And bearing in mind, these are young people who are very disengaged with education, that this college isn't mainstream. So it's where, you mentioned accommodations. These are children that have always needed accommodations, and now they've come to this college because they can't be mainstreamed. So we're dealing with children that are quite disengaged sometimes from education. The really cool thing with Toby's clay workshop, and Toby phoned me straight after he did the workshop, and he said, you'll never guess what. I think it was a 3-hour workshop. So they all got clay. They made these clay envelopes that represented them. They're so stunning. I'll share some pictures with you when they're painted. They're going to paint them next week. But they made the clay, and Toby went, you won't believe it, a 3-hour workshop, not one child asked to go to the toilet. And
that's engagement.
we were just like, what? So, and Toby was saying as well how Toby was cutting the clay, and one child, was like, one young person said, oh, can I come and help you cut the clay? They wanted to help deliver it to their peers. And you already, and that was just the launch, so I can't wait to see what happens in the actual project. But Toby already was saying how seeing these children responding to not just sitting down with a textbook being spoken at, but getting involved in these different skills in these different spaces to think about themselves and do something artistic. Actually, yeah, I think the fact that no child wanted to go to the bathroom for 3 hours, and they were not being held prisoner, they were just engaged, as you say. So that felt really cool. Like, I think we have something here.
Yeah, and I think the structure of using art or other forms of mediums to express,
and sports, as you know,
sports, right? Because I feel like you could have done a similar lesson with pen and pencil if you really wanted to, like if that's like the easy way out, right? But I think eliminating that barrier, because you were literally trying to siphon info from them, like that's literally like the point of it, right? So limiting that barrier of pencil and paper literacy, like this is the same thing with audiobooks, right? Like there's so much good stories that you could have, that you would learn from and you could listen to, that you could absorb. But if you didn't have like a confidence in literacy, or if you didn't have the ability to write well, that would be a roadblock for you to engage in the content. So, and man, I gotta pick your brain. If you ever invite me on your podcast, I'll talk about my film studies class and my audio video stuff, because it is all
definitely
it is all project simulations. Like so at the school I was working at a couple of years ago, we had to do like the morning announcements. But instead of just having the intercom and stuff like that, I'm like, we're going to make this a news show. So we had a moose set, we had 2 cameras, and basically we did the daily news. We filmed the announcements as a daily news show, and we made like commercials for like if there's a bake sale going on or if there's like a sports event happening. But like at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot of tangible assessment pieces. There's just like they had a job to do. And if they didn't get that job done, they would, the younger kids, the year 6 kids that were year 7 kids in the school, they'd be like, where's the news? Like, so they had like they were like literally celebrities to the younger kids, but they would walk in, they're like, we got this job, we have to do it. And when they didn't know something, they're like, Drover, come here. How do you do this? And it was like, I call it just in time learning. Like they had to learn as they go because they had a task and they wanted to figure out that task. And if I told them like how to do it, like with pen and paper, and made me an essay on what the best way to transcribe information to be most palatable to the largest amount of audiences, like you're falling asleep as I'm saying that. Like it's just like that's the thing. So having that research group, that workshop that you had, completely separated from the I guess the literacy skill, allowed you to pull information about those students that you would otherwise not have got. So that is literally where I think education should be going towards. We need the resources to do that on the largest scale. And I think that's what you're going to find in your research. I think, spoiler alert, that's what it's going to be.
I think you might be right. And I think what's really cool as well is just hearing what you did with those children and the young people around, making the news, making the adverts. You're also preparing them for adulthood, right? Because you're showing them, these are kind of jobs you might go into, but also that you need to be resilient. You need to have common sense. You need to be proactive in the workplace and think for yourself. So that sounds really cool. But yeah, I'll let you know what we find. This project runs right to the end of this year. And we return our report to the funder in January. So I'm hoping that we find out some really interesting things, as with the young people. So
Yeah, and those two of those students got internships at a local video production company, which was pretty
Wow,
sweet.
see, here's what I
Yeah,
mean. You're preparing
yeah.
him for the next step. So
I will send
that's
you a
actually
couple of those
awesome.
videos. But yeah, so I think that is going to be like, I think I see your vision for an inclusive classroom right now, which is I'm excited. And I really just hope, because I think some of our limitations right now is funding, right?
Yes.
And class sizes and stuff like that. Because I think so many teachers have the ambition and drive to do exactly what you want to do. The things that we're talking about right now. It's just sometimes when you have 36 kids in a grade 8 science class in, a 24 by 24 or a 20 by 20 room, it's not feasible, right? Or when you don't have, when you teach, I call it performing. Like, I have 5 shows a week, 5 shows a day. And so like last semester I didn't have a preparation period, no prep. I was just like
Wow.
9 to 3, but like I had lunchtime to scarf down. So I think we're getting the answers, and I think the solid research that you're doing, like the data, like the hard numbers that the people in suits really like to see,
Yeah.
I think that is what's going to be the catalyst to make change. Because like I feel like there's a lot of anecdotes that we already know, but we need to have it in a binder stacked with unequivocal empirical evidence and be like, listen, this is what it's like. I did all the numbers for you, even though I kind of already knew what we were doing, but like, that is what we're going to do.
It's what we hope. Yeah, let's hope it leads to some reform. So
All right. I got one more question to ask you. And then I'll let you go, because I feel like the little children are going to run into frame any minute now. Well, I guess 2 questions. Sorry. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is something about your profession right now as a researcher and an educator that is not always portrayed accurately or complete in the media?
Mm. Yeah, so I would say when I tell people that I'm a researcher or that I'm a doctor and I'm a researcher, we instantly think researchers in a lab. Yeah, and I've got a microscope. I would say our best research can come from speaking to people. So through my psychology masters, it's all about numbers. Exactly what you said. It's about statistics, clinical trials. But actually, when we look at qualitative research, if we just take time to hear about people's lived experiences, people's behaviors, people's opinions, that's where, in my opinion, I'm slightly biased, but that's where the real learning happens, from hearing people's stories. So yeah, I would say the best research does not have to be in a white coat in a lab.
Fantastic. And I 100% agree with that. Okay. Final question. And I think we've already talked about it, but what gives you hope right now for the future of education?
I would say enthusiastic teachers like you. The fact that, so many people still want to keep having these conversations. We don't just want to go home after the teaching day is done and switch off. And I think that's what makes teaching different from many other jobs, where you go home, that's it, till you're back there the next day. Because for us as educators, we spoke about lifelong learning. Teaching is also like day and night long, right? It's always on your mind. That one student you're worried about, I wonder if that went okay. I wonder if their dad's funeral went okay. And so I think, what makes me excited is that although, as you say, we do have issues with funding, with assessment that most of us don't like, with curriculums many of us don't agree with, that are outdated. Actually, what we do have are people that are amazing student teachers, trainee teachers, new teachers who've been teaching for 6 years and making podcasts. People that I know, like me, that have been teaching for 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years. And actually, I'm excited that we still are making space for these conversations to continually reflect how we can keep improving educational provision for everyone, regardless of age, for our youngest to the adults like I teach. We can always keep improving. And so that's what gives me hope.
Yeah, I think that gives me hope too. And I love to see it. And I love to see like the student teachers that I had, that they're ambitious and ready to go.
Yeah.
When you talked about assessment, I forgot to tell you, you know how I marked those news projects that the students did? I played them on my TV after, like, when we were eating dinner with my fiance, and I told her, "Do you know what's going on in the school right now? Can you hear? Like, do you have a clear idea of what is happening, of what they just announced?" And if she's like, "Yep, I completely got it. I know there's a bake sale and pizza party on Friday. There's soccer tryouts on Thursday." Like, if she knew it, understand it, that's 100%. That's a good mark. If she was like, "I didn't hear anything, what the voice was mumbled or whatever," then I would come in the next day and be like, "Guys, this is it. Like, we had to fix this, and this." So that's how I marked it.
I
So
also love that you gave the critique through your fiance, so you didn't have to feel like the bad guy.
well, like, I know what's going on, right? Like, I know. So if you can explain it to a stranger properly and clearly, I know that anyone in the school is going to hear it clearly, right?
Yeah, that's very
All right.
cool.
Well, Dr. Poppy, thank you for giving me the time on your Tuesday afternoon to talk with me. I really appreciate it. And I truly did get a new insight and perspective that I can share with my family and my students, and just a more revigorated sense of what my purpose is as a teacher.
I love it. Well, I hope this isn't our last conversation. I hope it's the first of many. And I look forward to following your journey through socials, and hope you'll be a guest on my podcast in the future.
Just date and time, and I'll be there.
I will.
All right. We're going to end the call now. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye. Thank you for
Bye.
tuning in to Professional Development with me, Mr. Drover. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow educators. You can also connect with me on Instagram or via email to continue the conversation and share your thoughts. Well, until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference, both inside and outside the classroom. I'll see you in the next episode.